Hello guys, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In my previous video, I mentioned a book by Napoleon Hill entitled Think and Grow Rich. And in that same video, I discussed 6 steps that he gives to achieve wealth or any amount of money that you desire. Now, these 6 steps, which we mentioned before, include fixing the exact amount of money in your mind, determining what you will give to get that money, establishing a definite date when you intend to possess the money, creating a definite plan for carrying out your desire, writing out a clear, concise statement of the amount of money you intend to acquire, and reading your written statement twice daily, once before sleeping and the other after rising from bed. So these are the 6 steps, what he calls actually the 6 definite practical steps to transmute desire for riches into its financial equivalent. So those are those 6 steps that we discussed in the previous video. Now in this video, I'm giving a more general review of Napoleon Hill's work, and in particular the 13 steps towards riches that he mentions. These are the essential components of his book and his philosophy in Think and Grow Rich. He calls them the 13 steps towards riches. So let's go through these one by one. The first one is desire. Write that in big letters there, because desire is the starting point. Desire is the first step towards achieving your goal. Why is that? Because you have to know what you want in life. You need to know, what is it that you desire? What do you want out of life? He calls this the starting point of all achievement. What's step number 2? Faith. Now, why is this important? Faith is essentially believing that you will achieve your goals. He calls it visualization of and belief in attainment of desire. So how do we achieve this state? How do we achieve this visualization? He says, this is developed by, quote, repetition of affirmation of orders to your subconscious mind, end quote. So essentially, what it is you engender this belief within yourself. You inculcate this belief within yourself by repeating certain statements, certain affirmations that will reinforce this belief. For example, you can repeat the idea that money is abundant, money comes easily. This will change your mindset about money. Or you could say, I am a money-making machine. You can essentially not brainwash, but let's say teach ourselves or reprogram our mind to believe that you can achieve wealth and riches. So this will give you the essential quality of faith, visualization of and belief in attainment of your desire. Okay, so step number 3, auto-suggestion. This is basically what we've just referred to. So auto-suggestion is the method of developing faith. He says, quote, fix in your own mind the exact amount of money you desire. Hold your thoughts on the amount of money by concentration or fixation of attention with your eyes closed until you can actually see the physical appearance of the money. Do this at least once each day, end quote. So you should essentially visualize, and through this process of auto-suggestion, you give a message to your subconscious mind that will basically reprogram yourself and give you the pathway to achieving your desires. Okay, now step number 4, specialized knowledge. Now, this is a key component. Why? Because unless you know about something in sufficient detail, how can you go into that line of business? You need to know your business, in other words. You can't be an internet entrepreneur if you know nothing about the internet. Now, what he says is, knowledge plus plans of action leads to the definite end of accumulation of money. Also, know where to get knowledge when you need it. So having access to knowledge is in many cases as important as actually having the knowledge yourself. And step 5, imagination. Imagination he calls the workshop of the mind. This is the plane on which you can visualize everything that you want to achieve. Without imagination, there are no inventions, there is no Henry Ford developing the Model T, there is no Einstein developing the theory of relativity, there is no Edison and the light bulb. There is no invention without imagination. And you could say this is actually what sets us apart from animals, that we can imagine in this abstract sense anything that we desire, anything that we can bring into existence. And then we can actually bring those things into existence. We can imagine flying cars and then 20 years down the line develop flying cars. It's possible, and we can do it as human beings. Okay, so these are the first 5 steps: desire, faith, autosuggestion, specialized knowledge, and imagination. Okay guys, moving on to step number 6, organized planning. Okay, now what is this? As we mentioned in the 6 steps towards getting money, if you want to achieve any goal, if you want to accumulate money, if you want to do anything at all that's productive, you have to make a plan. Without a plan, there is no achievement. And it has to be organized. It has to be set out. What is the step-by-step plan that you're going to follow? He says that organized planning is the crystallization of desire into action. Your desire, which was the first step, is transformed into action as a result of organized planning. And he says, quote, "A quitter never wins and a winner never quits." End quote. Okay. Number 7, decision. Now this is actually not so much about decision in an abstract sense, but about decisiveness. If you're going to achieve anything in life, you have to be decisive. It's no good dithering and dathering and saying, umming and ahhing, should I go ahead with this? Should I purchase this course? Should I invest this amount of money? I don't know, Bitcoin's a bit risky. I don't want to invest $50 of my money into Bitcoin. But if you invested $100 into Bitcoin a few years ago, you would now have $70 million. So decisiveness does work out for you in the end. So lack of decision leads to failure. Reaching decisions promptly leads to success. And he says, quote, "Keep your own counsel when you begin to put into practice the principles described here by reaching your own decisions and following them. Don't be influenced by naysayers." Right. 8. Persistence. Okay? You're never going to achieve anything unless you have persistence. You must persist until you reach your goal. Never give up. He says, the basis of persistence is the power of will. End quote. So willpower. Willpower is what you need. You need to have the will to achieve all your goals. Willpower and desire, he also says, when properly combined, make an irresistible pair. So combine willpower with your original desire, and you can thus achieve success. Okay, so 9 is power. Okay, what does it mean by this? Power, in this sense, he's talking about the power of something he calls the mastermind, the driving force. He defines power, quote, as organized and intelligently directed knowledge. And there are 3 sources of knowledge. One, he says, is infinite intelligence, which is creative imagination, comes from your subconscious mind. 2 is accumulated experience, what you've learned over the course of your life. And 3 is experiment and research. Now, the mastermind, which he talks about, the source of this great power, he calls it, quote, coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between 2 or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose, end quote. So, what this means is that basically nobody has ever achieved their goals by going it alone. Everybody needs help. And one of the best ways of getting this help is by forming a group of people who are all working together towards the same aim. Now, every great general has his lieutenant generals. Even Napoleon Bonaparte didn't succeed in his goals without help. George Washington didn't fight the British on his own. So every single person who succeeded in life has had a mastermind group of people encouraging each other and giving each other advice and suggestions towards achieving their goals, while ignoring all the naysayers who try to bring them down. Okay, and number 10, transmutation. Now this one, if you're reading his book for the first time, you may find this one a little bit weird. And for those whose English is their second language, just to clarify, transmute means to transform one thing into another thing, like taking energy and putting it into action, for example. So what does he say here? He talks about translating the emotion of sex desire towards imagination, courage, willpower, persistence, and creative ability. A bit odd, right? Talking about sex desire. So what does he mean by this? One of the things he says is that men often achieve their goals through the love of a woman. So, for example, Napoleon Bonaparte was motivated by his love for Josephine, but he transmuted this energy, this drive for love, into his imagination and his hard work and his planning to achieve his goals. So people are quite obsessed with this desire for women, and it kind of distracts them from achieving their goals. And he also says, quote, men who accumulate large fortunes and attain to great heights of power and fame do so mainly to satisfy their desire to please women, which I've just referred to. Okay, so taking this energy, you should transmute it, you should focus the energy you would be spending on trying to please women towards actually achieving your objectives. Use that same energy in the line of action, in the line of bringing your creative imagination into the realization of your desires. Okay, now let's move on to number 11. The subconscious mind. You may be wondering what this means. Now, if you know anything about psychology, the subconscious mind is that layer of the mind which you don't directly control. It's the part of you that makes you do things that you don't even understand why you're doing them. For example, subconsciously, you may want to drink Coca-Cola, for example, or some other refreshing beverage. Now, why is that? Because you've been watching lots of advertisements which subliminally give you the idea that Coca-Cola equals refreshment, that if you drink Coca-Cola, you will be refreshed. So the image, even seeing a bottle of Coca-Cola, can make you feel refreshed. And this is your subconscious mind. By watching all these advertisements, by seeing the images of people, being refreshed in the ice, in the snows, Father Christmas, Santa Claus, drinking a Coca-Cola, you innately have this idea. It's almost hardwired into you that Coca-Cola is refreshing. So the subconscious mind has an incredible power. Hang on a second. Just feeling a little bit parched, so I thought I'd drink some Coca-Cola. Don't know where I got the idea for that. It's probably in my subconscious mind. By the way, Coca-Cola, you want to sponsor me? You can sponsor me if you want. That's refreshing and sugar-free. Coca-Cola. Okay, moving swiftly on. So what does he say? He calls the subconscious mind the connecting link. He says, quote, it is a field of consciousness in which every impulse of thought that reaches the objective mind through any of the 5 senses is classified and recorded, and from which thoughts may be recalled or withdrawn, or letters may be taken from, as letters may be taken from a filing cabinet. He also writes, you may voluntarily plant in your subconscious mind any plan, thought, or purpose which you desire to translate into its physical or monetary equivalent. The subconscious acts first on the dominating desires which have been mixed with emotional feeling, such as faith. So how do we do this? How do we program our subconscious mind? He says, quote, make your desires clear and reduce them to writing, end quote, which we already learned earlier in this video and in my previous video on the 6 steps towards getting, 6 steps for getting money. And he says you can feed your subconscious with your desires, not negativity. So you want to make sure you're implanting in your subconscious the desires you want to achieve and not negative thoughts about poverty, sickness, losing money, debt, death, all these sort of negative things. You want to be inspiring your mind, okay? He says, avoid fear, jealousy, hatred, revenge, greed, superstition, and anger, and cultivate desire, faith, love, sex, enthusiasm, romance, and hope. All right, moving on to number 12, the brain. The brain. The brain, of course, is a physical part of your body. It is like a computer, a calculator, and he calls it actually a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. So it's basically the idea that, quote, the brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought which are being released by other brains. So he has this idea that brain waves, whether or not this is scientifically true, his concept is that brain waves sort of radiate out from your mind and are picked up by other people's minds. I don't know if that is actually true or not. Scientists will have to confirm this theory. And he says that it is transmitted through the ether. Quote, the creative imagination is the receiving set of the brain which receives thoughts released by the brains of others. So he thinks that your imagination is actually picking up, like a radio receiver, transmissions from other people's minds. So this is a little bit philosophical or theoretical, and as far as I'm aware, has not yet been confirmed by science, but it's an interesting idea. He also says, quote, the mind, when stepped up to a high rate of vibration, becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought which reaches it through the ether from outside sources. This stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or the negative emotions. You can also pass on or receive negative emotions from others. So he's saying you should increase the vibrations of your mind with positive feelings, positive emotions, and positive desires. Right. Talks about clairvoyance and telepathy, but we won't go into that. And the final of the 13 steps towards riches. This, again, is a difficult one for many people to comprehend, but it is the sixth sense, the sixth sense. Now, we all know we have 5 main senses, right? We have sight, we have hearing, smell, touch, taste. These are the 5 main senses. But there is, according to Napoleon Hill and many others, something called a sixth sense, quote, through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort, form, or demands by the individual, end quote. He calls this idea the apex of his philosophy, but it can only be assimilated, understood, and applied by first mastering the other 12 principles. So what is he talking about? What is the sixth sense? Hill defines it as, quote, that portion of the subconscious mind which has been referred to as the creative imagination. It serves a number of functions, such as warning of impending danger and notifying you of opportunities in time to embrace them. It's thus a sort of guardian angel. So you could say what he's talking about is also intuition. Okay, so you have intuition about danger, for example, or maybe a new opportunity, and it's also related to imagination, your ability to imagine. The source, though, he says of this, is something he calls infinite intelligence. That's interesting. What is infinite intelligence? Presumably, he's talking about a higher reality, a higher being, a divine being, or God. Now, what he talks about later in this chapter is a little bit unusual. He actually talks about having imaginary meetings with his own sort of imaginary mastermind group of individuals, such as Emerson, Paine, Edison, Darwin, Lincoln, Burbank, Napoleon Bonaparte, Ford, and Andrew Carnegie. And why does he have these meetings? He says, to rebuild my own character so it would represent a composite of the characters of of my imaginary counselors. He also says, I can truthfully say that I owe entirely to my invisible counselors full credit for such ideas, facts, or knowledge as I received through inspiration. So he basically says he gets a lot of inspiration through having these imaginary meetings. He would sit down, close his eyes, and imagine that he was surrounded by these departed individuals and have an imaginary meeting with them, and they would give him advice and he would discuss his plans with them. So this is another sort of concept of the mastermind group. It's a bit unusual, but he says you can develop your sixth sense through, quote, years of meditation, self-examination, and what's the word? Serious thought. Okay, sometimes I can't read my own handwriting. Serious thought. So meditation, self-examination, serious thought. His method is to use these imaginary counselors. Other methods could be through prayer for some people if you're religious, or through meditation. I've actually written a book on meditation that I'll be releasing in the near future, so do make sure to like and subscribe to this channel and also to my mailing list, and follow me on Twitter at Nicholas19 if you want to get updates about my future publications. And I'm also releasing a course soon on Business Mastery Secrets, as it is provisionally called, or BIZMASTERY Secrets, which will give you some clear steps, 9 secrets to achieving wealth and prosperity, or your business goals. I won't give you too many details on that now, but you will find out more about it in upcoming videos. So if you want to transmute your desires, as Napoleon Hill talks about, into their practical equivalent, which is money or success, then you should invest in yourself. Take the step, take the plunge, invest a certain amount of money in yourself, whether that is through buying a meditation book or book on mindfulness, such as the book I've already published on mindfulness, or buying my course, for example, Business Mastery Secrets, or just investing in your own self through reading other books, taking other courses, or even taking the plunge and beginning your own business, your own online business or other source of income. So it's very important to invest in yourself and try to achieve your goals. And I think not everyone will agree with the 13 steps that Napoleon Hill has laid out, but I think it's a useful plan, and some of them are a bit more philosophical. Not everyone will agree with steps 11, 12, and 13 here, or the one about transmutation. But nevertheless, whether you agree with his ideas or not, I do highly recommend that you read Think and Grow Rich, if only because it is a book that has inspired so many others. And just to give you a bit of background on that, I did mention this, I believe, in my previous video, but this book was written at the suggestion, according to Napoleon Hill, at the suggestion of Andrew Carnegie, whom he met as a reporter, and it was Andrew Carnegie who suggested that he spend 20 years studying the most successful, wealthiest individuals in America, and using their experience to help develop these 13 steps. So these 13 steps are based, according to Hill's own testimony, on actual knowledge and experience acquired by some of the wealthiest men in America. So I do recommend that you read the book, and refreshing Coca-Cola. As I have already suggested, do make sure to click like and subscribe to this video. Follow me on Twitter at Nicholas19. If possible, join my mailing list as well, and I will keep you updated about my upcoming books, my upcoming projects, and also my Business Mastery Secrets course, which I highly recommend that you purchase as soon as it comes out. So that's all for today, guys, and thank you very much. Keep on watching. Oh, are you guys still here? I did say click like and subscribe. Have you done that yet? Click like and subscribe. See you.